I would love to know about your childhood, where you grew up, what it was like for you when you were young.
I mean, I grew up in the northwestern part of Florida, like the very edge of the Florida Panhandle, in a city called Pensacola, which is it's gotten bigger like over the years, but it's a military town, and like all things, especially in America, but especially in the South, it's pretty spread out. So the little like kind of pockets of civilization, but there's it's not very walkable. It's very very hot. And we lived, I mean, like the way I describe it in the first book I wrote is pretty accurate. I mean, I lived in a pretty small. It's gotten bigger now. Like at least I looked at it on Google Maps, and it's different. But a pretty small residential neighborhood, full of like a mixture of homes and like double wide trailers, which is what I lived in.
Hmm.
But it was a pretty good and normal childhood, I think.
Yeah,
I was raised by my mom.
yeah.
Lived like on the edge of a bunch of woods and a bunch of stuff that would be a lot of fun for a kid. So yeah, it was pretty normal, I think. I've lived in Florida basically my whole life, so.
Was it quite isolated then, relatively speaking? So, when you were a child, obviously you're not driving. So you're kind of in this space most for pretty much the whole time. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean you're in your neighborhood, and even to go to like another neighborhood is a huge production, so you're
Yeah,
limited
yeah.
to who happens to live around you. My best friend lived, I don't know, maybe like a 15-minute, 20-minute drive away, which is depending on
Yeah.
your the parents' schedule can be, insurmountable sometimes. It
It's
can
like
be
an
hard to get.
hour round trip. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's a whole thing. So and if you want to go into town, that's its whole thing. Like
Yeah.
it's a big ordeal, big production. So yeah, you're stuck there.
You didn't mind being so you I'm guessing you kind of liked also the kind of nature, or like, or maybe having that freedom, outside in the wilds of the area. Did you like that kind of stuff, playing and
Uh,
stuff?
I mean I did, and it's hard to like parse how much of that was because I didn't know any different and I
Hmm.
didn't have access to anything else,
Yeah.
and how much I just kind of like natively liked it. But I mean the neighborhood that I grew up in had like a lot of, it wasn't like a sprawling forest that I could explore, but it was, big enough woods for a kid. We had
Yeah.
like creeks and lakes and
That.
yeah, he's making the rounds. Uh, so like a lot of stuff that was, for me a lot of fun, and I made the best use of it that I could,
Yeah.
shooting slingshots off in the woods and
Definitely.
just kind of tearing them up as much as I could as a little kid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun. I liked it.
Yeah. So I mean, you're kind of saying that you didn't know any different, maybe you didn't have the access. Did you have a kind of sense of that at the time at all? Did you have a sense of like there is a lot out there and I'm here? Or did that
Oh,
yeah, you did. Tell me about it.
yeah. I mean, because you would go into, we would go into town. We go to the mall, or to go to the movies or something, and it's it didn't. I never had the thought of like we could live. Why don't we live closer to here?
Hmm.
Closer to town, or civilization. I knew kids who did.
Yeah.
And I would be at their houses sometimes, and it never like took the form of envy or anything
No.
in me. It was a nice like when we were closer to
Hmm.
town or whatever. It was a nice little like departure from what I was used to, because it was really like pretty extremely rural. It wasn't farmland. I mean, I did live in farmland when I was a little older, but it was pretty
Yeah.
isolated. It was like a 10-minute drive to the nearest like gas station.
Hmm.
So yeah, I did have a sense that there were other ways to be,
But
but
you
that
weren't like, oh my God, like I want to go there. I don't want to be here. You kind of you were satisfied with where you were. But I guess like,
yeah, I think
yeah, yeah. So no, like the bridge between it is like, obviously I think sometimes the imagination fills the distance between that kind of there's so much out there and I'm kind of here. I feel like for me, it was definitely like maybe having some restrictions in my life of what I could do and how I could do, raised by family with certain values. Like, imagination was the thing. I knew there was a world out there, but I just kind of filled in the blanks with that. Did you obviously kind of, before we start talking about like how you actually came to literally becoming a writer, like it's like, were you kind of doing a lot of make believe stuff in various forms when you were young?
Well, yeah, for sure. The little like childhood projects and playing like adventurers and
Yeah,
then building rafts out of old like
yeah,
styrofoam pieces left behind at building sites, that kind of stuff. And then of course like toys. I remember like I did write some kind of I wrote and drew. I'm not a good artist.
no,
What I
children draw, yeah, yeah.
I've tried. I made like a little excuse me, a little comic book. But yeah, I think there was a lot of that because there wasn't, we had TV, we had cable, but there wasn't, if what I wanted to watch wasn't on, then there was nothing to watch. There was no internet
Yeah,
that yet
yes.
existed yet. So it was, you're very much left to your own devices. And so that's why going out and playing in the woods and just kind of terrorizing the streets on my little bicycle, that was my version of fun and escape or whatever.
Yeah, totally. I think what's interesting for me is like, because obviously, yeah, you're saying you grew up in a rural place and you've ended up writing and connecting with people not only across the internet, but obviously your readers as well. Very broadly, you're very widely read. And the internet's obviously helped that, and we could talk about that. But I kind of want to know because, horror and I mean, you're wearing a Motorhead t-shirt, presume you're into metal as well. And I feel like those things, for me at least, they overlap quite a lot in terms of why I'm attracted to them.
Sure.
It's not because I'm like a dark, and Yolan says like a dark, evil person. It's just because there's a sense of like maybe belonging to a community and maybe feeling a bit different in some way.
Sure.
Maybe not being able to articulate it when you're young and then seeing other people who are not the same as you, but they are different and you kind of collect around that. So was there a point at which you started feeling like, oh, I can maybe like things differently from other people, or did you have someone who influenced you to kind of like these things?
I was a mixture. I mean,
Yeah,
I grew up, so when I was a real little kid, it was what I described like, double wides and a real small rural town or part of the city. And then when I was like 12, we moved to another very remote area of like kind of adjacent to Pensacola. It doesn't matter what it's called,
yeah.
but that was like farmland and it was just as isolated, but just a little more like more rural and more like hillbilly
Wow. Okay.
and so like I remember, yeah, I was on a bus. I went to a school that was like I didn't go to the school I was zoned for, so I'd ride a school bus to I'm trying to remember if this is right. I would ride a school bus to the high school, the middle school that I should have been going to,
Hmm.
but then I would transfer to a different bus and go to a different middle school where like nobody, it was a magnet school.
Yeah.
That's what they called it.
Yeah.
So it siphoned in kids from like all over the city. So like I didn't go to school with kids I grew up around,
Right.
and so like you're trying to make friends and you're trying to
It's
make
hard.
connections. Yeah, and so
At
I
12 as well, because
yeah
that's when boys, especially, and girls as well, but boys, I think, if they're like you've been friends with boys, that's when boys start changing. There's a competitiveness and there's a judgment and then like an insecurity that naturally comes with that age. It's like really hard
it
to start.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's super awkward. Like
So awkward.
yeah, like you want to be like,
Oh my God.
friendly or whatever, but you want to be cool and you want to
Yeah.
like make friends and you want to be your own person.
Yeah.
But
All the while not knowing anything about
exactly.
anything or who you are really. Like
Yeah.
everyone's like looking at everyone else and everyone's
Yeah.
looking at everyone else, but no one wants to say they're looking at, it's so shit, I think.
Yeah. No, and it absolutely is. I mean,
Yeah.
luckily, like the stakes aren't super high. I mean, it's existential, so they're high
Yeah.
in that regard. But you're 12, you're in middle school, And so you can kind of experiment with different, identities or personas or
Yes.
aesthetics or whatever. But I was riding next to this kid on the school bus. I had a tape player and he had a tape player too. And I don't remember what I was listening to, but he was like a skater kid, like
Yeah.
did skateboards. He didn't live in my neighborhood, but we rode the same bus and we traded, like we unplugged our headphones and swapped.
Very
And so
cool. Yeah.
so I was listening to what he was listening to, and it was a band called the Subhumans.
Right.
So like that was for me, like I think my first exposure to, to something that, like, it was hard to come by. I'd never heard it before. It was
Yeah.
interesting to me. It was really,
Alternative culture. Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was really aggressive and like that.
What kind? What kind of genre was it?
It's punk.
Punk.
It's
Like
they're
nasty punk. Like kind of,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're not like overly musical.
Yeah.
A lot of nasalness in his voice, a lot of
Yeah.
yelling more than singing.
Yeah.
Really like hyper political,
Yeah.
which kind of served as a gateway to my own, later. Not at 12, I wasn't forming like concrete political views, but
Yeah.
it
An
served as,
awakening. Yeah.
yeah. So like I started there, and then it was really just borrowing music from people, and
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. No, of
yeah,
course, because coming from a rural place, obviously, like the ideas in general that you're exposed to, even if you lived in the most like liberal kind of like small community or the most kind of like right wing kind of community, like it's a small pool of ideas and topics. Obviously, those kind of things, those kind of experiences are being awakened to like that side of life, and especially through music, I think as well, is because it's accessible. It's not someone like ranting at you. It's like it sounds good. And
yes,
especially punk, and for me, like definitely for me, like death metal, and obviously Florida, like massive like death metal scene in Florida, like
yeah.
but like that definitely had a similar thing for me where it was the sound of it kind of like was like, oh, this fits with something in me. But then you kind of get through to the message and then yeah, you just click with it in a different way. Uh
Yeah, the sounds of it and the aesthetic, like the
yeah,
album cover,
exactly.
and yeah,
Yeah.
it either repulses you completely or
Yes.
it pulls you in and wraps you up in a nice embrace.
It is, and I want to ask you like because that thing about the repulsion of people being repulsed to kind of let's say like horror, things like metal. Do you think that that's something to do with being afraid of the self of themselves? You know, like because I often think that to be interested in these kind of things like horror, it actually requires quite a lot of curiosity, quite a lot of self-reflection, like it's obviously about reading something that makes you scared, for example, is you're really like communicating with yourself and your own fears, which some people don't like. So what I'm asking is like that repulsion, do you think it is because people are scared of looking inward, or do you think it's just because for some people just that's just not their thing?
I mean, I think it's probably both. I think that like the aesthetics and the content of whether we're talking about uh like metal music or horror, or I mean, these things are all like pretty primal and pretty visceral.
Yes.
And so they tap into something that is either, and I'm sure it depends on a variety of context and factors, but it taps into something that exists in everybody. Everybody's,
Yes.
got their own, like, biologically driven or like
Mm.
environmentally derived diversions, and you either enjoy the way that feels,
Mm.
the way it feels to be kind of disgusted or repulsed by something, but like, it's interesting to have that experience, especially when it's something that like can't actually harm you, like a picture
Yes.
or a sound can't harm you. Uh, and so it's interesting, like, to think about it and to experience it, and either you like the way that feels, or you don't. Like I like, to a limit, and everyone's got, it's all very
Yeah.
idiosyncratic, but I like being scared. I like being, like
Mm.
confronted by stuff like that. So I think it probably is a mixture.
Yeah, it is. I think I speak to a lot of people, and the message that I get from most horror fans is that they've usually experienced something in their life which has shook them quite deeply. Usually, it's weird. I think a lot of people think that if you're reading horror, watching horror, listening to metal is like, well, the kind of the propaganda throughout time has been that it's bad for you and it will make you a worse person. But a lot of people who have had these quite profound experiences in life, maybe quite young, have kind of used this stuff as a way to kind of feel okay, which is kind of counterintuitive given what you might think if someone says, "Oh, I just don't like horror; it's too scary."
Sure.
It's like, well, but what if these people who enjoy horror have actually experienced fear in their own life and they use this way to cope? Like maybe you're not looking at it in the right way. You don't need to wear like the black clothes and like do everything. It's just, I just wonder why. Well, a parallel question, like why do you think that horror movies are so big, but relatively speaking, horror books are not as big?
That's a good question. Um, I think that in general, films are just bigger
Yeah, they're
than
more
movies.
watched. Yeah,
Yeah, films are bigger than literature, than books. I think there's like a variety of reasons for why horror films are so popular and why they kind of get made with such regularity and kind of like galvanize public perception. I mean, one, like horror movies are this is like just the financial component of it. Horror movies are generally like pretty cheap to make.
yeah, 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 and they have an audience.
Yeah, they have a built-in kind of ready-made, genre specific audience. Like I'll go see and I consume a lot of horror movies of a variety of different, ranges from qualities,
Yeah,
and some of them I know are going to be bad, but I'll
but that's
still
part of
watch.
it.
It
Yeah,
is. And I think that that's like I think and this is again subjective and idiosyncratic, but like a bad horror movie I find to be like eminently more watchable than like a bad comedy. Like
yeah, yeah,
there's still some enjoyment that you can, so bad it's good, like that
yeah,
kind of.
yeah, yeah. I think
And
it's
so
It's passionate. I think horror. It's very hard to make I don't know if this word, an unpassionate, a dispassioned horror film.
I
You know?
think that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, and so I think like because of that, like no matter how you're approaching it, there will be like I think passion that's infused into it.
yeah,
I mean, there will be like cash grabs, sure, but like I
yeah.
think generally
Take
speaking,
my
like
money though, as
yeah,
well.
yeah, no, for sure, no, I agree, and so I think that like the range of horror, right? So if it's like if we just go by like ratings in the States, like PG-13 or
Yeah,
R, like if you go to a PG-13 movie, like, you can have a good time. It won't be like excessively gory. There'll be some nice little jump scares
yeah,
and maybe like a little bit of creepiness. You can make like horrifying PG-13 movies, but like
yeah.
you can also have like, R-rated, and it's gonna
Mm,
go like, way harder, and so you can in terms of like why they're so popular, I think it's because horror casts a really, really wide net and taps
yeah.
into a bunch of different like fears and
Mm,
taboos that people are interested in. And so
yes.
it can't help but,
Yeah.
be
I would say,
popular.
because that's the thing is, I would say we're all, because horror is it talks about human things in a way that is so much more honest, I would say, than a lot of other stuff, like thrillers and stuff. I mean, that is literally entertainment a lot of the time. And horror, you can't really do horror well, I would say, on any level without talking about something that feels real and feels a bit kind of like your feet and just not quite touching the ground to like talk about it, like a taboo basically. um,
Mhm.
and I'm wondering if like horror has a bit of a almost like an image problem in the sense that because it could appeal to so many people. Basically my dream would be that people would stop seeing horror as being something which is like too scary or too extreme and something that maybe is about just maybe being curious.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, part of the problem, I think, because I agree with you, and I
Yeah,
think like, I think there's a lot, I love horror as a genre. I mean, I think most
yeah,
things are just envelopes to wrap stories in, and I
yeah.
really like the horror envelope. I think it's a really good way to tell, a story that you could tell as like a drama, but
No,
it's more
no,
fun.
I get it.
Yeah.
And it's
So
so
like,
so many stories as well. Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
But like part of the problem becomes like, I mean, I don't know how big of an issue this is, but because horror has such a wide net, like such a broad spectrum that you
yeah,
can cover, like you can go see like and you can go see like a good time like fun horror movie.
Yeah.
Like the last like good time fun horror movie I saw was Hard Eyes. That was a good movie. It
Yeah,
was a
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
good
love fun horror.
slasher.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like it was a rom-com wrapped in like a, a
yeah.
little horror. Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun movie.
Wait,
But
what's it called again? What did you say it was called?
Heart Eyes,
Heart Eyes. When did it when was this from?
like a year ago.
Okay, yeah, I think I haven't seen it, but no, sorry, I just I'm gonna remember it. Go on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if you know, what you're getting into, it's just a good, like, well-made, entertaining, funny, it's not quite a black comedy. It's just like a funny slasher movie.
Okay, okay,
And
cool.
it works, like, so you can see that, but then like, and if you're into that, then cool, you're having a good time. But then maybe you like, fuck up and make a mistake, and you go and watch Hereditary, and now you're having a problem. Like now you're not ready for that.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
Yeah, I saw that in the middle of the day with in the theaters when it came out with a bunch of like I don't know, it was like an older demographic, and like you could tell just by like the vibe in the theater that like this maybe that they maybe weren't completely sure of what they
When
were getting into when
it
they bought
went
the
too
ticket.
far for them, yeah,
I think so. And then
yeah.
you could then they were talking about it when the movie was over, and they did not I think they wished that they had bought a ticket for something different. So, it's a gamble.
It totally is. And you're kind of getting slightly more tentpole kind of versions of something like Hereditary, where I think more and more people are like exposed to it. What was the name? I'm so bad with names. The one which was very recently, the body horror one came out earlier this year, with the about the draining of the life fluid and
Oh,
the,
the
the
substance.
substance. Because I felt
Yeah.
like that had like a very much mainstream suddenly became a bit obsessed with like really graphic body horror.
Yeah, which
Like,
is great. I mean,
yeah,
like,
brilliant.
yeah, I was, and I was floored by how far that movie
I was
went.
sickened by it
Yeah, it was, no, it was disgusting. Like, and I thought, but like in a great
in a
way. And
fantastic way.
yeah,
Yeah,
and like, and even the last 20 minutes of that movie, like, I
yeah.
thought the movie was done, and then yeah, you get that last
I
fight.
wanted it to end. And
Yeah.
when I walked out of the cinema, someone had thrown up
Oh
outside,
my God.
which I was like, that was it. I was like, yeah, I mean, like obviously, for me, I was like, I probably actually could have done without 20 minutes at the end. Not because I didn't like it. I just was like, at that point, I was like, we've had 2 hours of this. I get it. But like anyway, I think it's like really good that that yeah, that has those moments. But I understand what you're saying. It's kind of but again, that's what I'm saying. Maybe it is a kind of not a it might be a marketing issue or something, a way of kind of getting out. I just love to see horror grow, basically, and I know you would too. And talking of like horror growing, like you have like you said that when you were young, you didn't have the internet, and when you found the internet, I know that you came up through the kind of the Reddit forum subreddits, and I think people again who are attracted to Reddit are people who are hungry for knowledge, curious about the world, okay with maybe going into a place that feels a little bit dangerous, like with people talking about things that maybe you feel like, should I know that? Like, so
Right.
when you kind of started, kind of go like when you've discovered the internet and started connecting with people in a way that you would obviously never would have been able to when you were a child, like, were you instantly kind of drawn to this also slightly, I'm going to say, darker side of life on the internet?
I mean, so like the early internet was like, I'm sure that there were, Angel Fire pages of people posting like,
Yeah.
their Halloween costume or whatever.
Yeah.
It was like the early internet, and a lot of people like if they're young, they never knew, like, they only know the internet as this like really like, well-formed kind of
Yeah.
cohesive thing. They
Yeah.
don't know what it's like to click around and go into random chat rooms and like talk to weirdos and
Yeah.
like, so like that's how I grew up. And once like, so yeah, when I first discovered the internet, like I didn't even know that stuff was on there, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known how to find it. But gradually over time, like as it gets more refined and people start using it for their own creative outlets, then like, yeah, you do, I'm like dodging stuff like, I don't want to watch Faces of Death. So like I'm dodging that, which is like snuff type, like a
Yeah.
mix for people who don't know. Like it's real videos of people dying and fake videos of people dying, and some I'm not interested in that, so I'm
No,
dodging.
no, no.
Yeah, and so like you're trying to follow your own sensibilities, and then like yeah, once you find a community or a place that
Mm.
that offers a creative outlet for people that in a way that you're interested in, then yeah, it's hard not to sink your teeth into it and dive in.
So how long were you using the internet before you found Reddit?
I mean, it would have been, I mean, I had like, dog shit like dial-up internet
Yeah, yeah.
when I first
Yeah, and all
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
You better hope no one picks up the phone or like you're done.
Yeah.
Uh, so I mean, I was using it, I think recreationally, for bursts of like research or for school and whatever. But I mean, I was probably on it for I don't know a good while, maybe like 10 years, just on the just having access to the internet before I found like a good horror community. I wasn't looking for one,
No.
but I
Yeah, yeah.
stumbled on one. So yeah, probably for a good amount of time before I realized like, oh, it can be this too. Like it can be like a you know
Yes.
meeting place for like-minded people and whatever.
Totally. And I think that's the thing is it's not, I don't think maybe nowadays, but actually maybe not really. Like people don't, I think, go, oh, I like horror. I'm going to find a horror community on the internet. You're kind of like seamlessly onboarded into it by just well now obviously the social media kind of knows what content you're watching, so it kind of feeds you more of it. But always I think is the case is like you're not fully formed when you go into the internet and you build your kind of personality. It helps you explore your personality in a way that yeah would be difficult to do like if we were all disconnected. I personally think that the internet is fantastic. I find it incredibly annoying when I hear people saying that the internet is a bad thing and that people using social media is a bad thing. I think it's ridiculous. I think that we're so much more open and connected to ourselves. Well, for me, I mean, maybe some people are just like rotting their brain by doing it. But like I'm imagining that you agree, you're an advocate for the internet in terms of what it can give communities such as horror, marginalized communities, I'd say, or communities that aren't like accessible within your immediate environment.
Sure.
Like, what did it feel for you? Clearly, coming up through literally the birth of like everything we take for granted now. Like, what did it mean to you, kind of being part of that, and what did it give you?
So, I mean, I think like I don't think there's an argument that can be made that the internet is not a net positive
Yeah,
for the world and for everything that you were saying, like smaller communities, especially like if you're in a more rural place or whatever. Like yeah, well, as with everything, it depends on how it's used.
yeah,
I
of
think
course,
the
like
thing,
everything, yeah,
yes, yeah, moderation is key and like the form it actually takes. As far as, yeah, things were pretty nascent when I was diving in. It was the internet wasn't young, but it being used as like creepy pastas in general were
yeah,
that was like pretty new. Like
yeah.
what I did, like, Penpal, it's not exactly a creepy pasta. I mean, that's like but it falls in that,
And this is from
in
No
that.
Sleep. You started. Is this the true origin story? I'm right in thinking that it came from the subreddit. You started writing these, kind of submitting these. Not they're not found footage, are they? But they're like, do you believe what
Yeah.
this? So it is a bit of a creepypasta, but it's also not at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, and at that point, you're getting into the weeds about like
Yeah,
what technically is a creepypasta.
yeah,
Yeah, maybe we don't need to litigate that. Like, that might not be that
yeah.
relevant.
No,
Uh, and it's not offensive to me. Like it's not I don't it's not a disparaging term or anything. Like, but
no,
yeah,
no. It's
I was
it's a legendary thing, but I understand that when you're like in these kind of communities, like these kind of things, I think that actually that passion for what are we and what is this and how do we define ourselves, like which I know that you could give me, I'm sure, a whole hour on.
sure, but it's not. I won't. Yeah, I'm not. I won't subject you to it.
No,
It's
no, no. It would be fascinating. So, but like, do you? So you kind of you've got this community of people again who are like feeling very strongly and really engaged, basically like super engaged. in something that would be very difficult for the average person who exists
Oh
outside
yeah.
the internet to understand, you know.
Yeah.
But there's so
Yeah.
much passion and lore in there, isn't there?
No, for sure. And especially like, I mean, I found No Sleep on, it was a random, there was an Ask Reddit thread, which is just a place where people just, they ask random questions and, anybody can answer. And it was something like, what's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you? And like people were writing these like, like 500 word descriptions of things that had happened to them. And I would see like, I think peppered throughout that, I would see people linking just to
Mm,
like r/no sleep. Like
mm,
basically, I gathered, after clicking the link, it was basically to say like, oh, if you like this, then go here, or this story should be on here. It was that sort of thing.
yeah.
And so I navigated my way there, and like it was really unclear because it was so it was like pretty new and it was pretty small, that community. And so like I couldn't, I didn't know right off like
No.
yeah, I didn't know what it was. Like I didn't know that if it was fiction. I mean, you pick it up, you figure it
Yeah.
out. Like, oh no,
Yeah,
this is
yeah. But that's
but like
part of the internet, isn't it? It's like
mhm.
you no one actually does go, here, this is exactly what this does. You have to be brave and you have to just try and figure out for yourself, which is a bit of a metaphor for life in a way. But
Oh, fair
the
enough.
internet is life. Like
Yes.
so you kind of you were there for a bit, you kind of figured it out. And like when you were reading these posts, like were you excited by them? Were
Oh
you
yeah.
like, oh yeah, this is good shit? Like,
Yeah, I mean, in like two ways, right? Like
yeah,
some of the stories were like genuinely good.
yeah,
Like they were interesting, they were well written, they were believable. After I understood like what the subreddit was doing, like that it was, the conceit of it is like it was really smart. It's just everything is true, even if it isn't. And so like everybody in the comments just kind of plays along and they're
yeah,
just
yeah.
they're yeah, what happened next? And oh my God, like, that's just whatever. Like, and so
Hyping. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, there's no because it's not supposed to be like stories. So there's not people in the comments being like your grammar sucks, like you're,
No.
working your adjective
It
game.
feels real. It's supposed to
Yes,
feel real. Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And so like for the two reasons, like some stories are really good. And then even just looking at the reactions or like what would happen with the story that wasn't good,
Yeah,
like it was still fine. It was still like it was basically like if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all,
yeah.
which like, there's a spot for criticism, obviously, but
Of course.
these are just people. These are just like random,
Yeah. Just
random.
vibing. Like,
Yeah, yes.
like why kill it? Like,
Yeah, no, exactly. Like
yeah.
if it's not good, move on, like
Yeah.
downvote it, like don't leave a comment. And it like the ranking and sorting system will take care of itself. And so like that's how I came in, was just reading like a bunch of those stories and being like, what this is a cool thing. Like it's some are better than others. It's not super polished. It's obviously like an outlet for amateur writers who like want
Yeah.
to tell like internet campfire stories. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a really small community compared to now. I think like when I first clicked in, I think there were like 50,000 like
Ah,
subscribers. And
yeah.
now there's like I haven't checked in a while, but there's tens of millions. It's
Yeah, no,
like,
and I think that, and I, I know that there's always this kind of, it's a bit awkward when you're discussing, oh, there was a time when it was real and it was good and it was perfect.
sure,
You know what I mean? But obviously, I think like anything on the internet, once things do become 10 million people, it dilutes it. How can it not? And there's nothing wrong with that, but that just happens and that's fine. But I think as long as we evolve on the internet and we don't stay stuck going, the good old days. It's like,
sure.
and this brings me on in conjunction with this to Penpal, which I have here, which I fucking loved, and 1,000 Vultures as well was your username,
Yeah.
right? So like you started writing in a way. I mean, I presume when you wrote your first and is it an entry? Was it your first
Yeah.
post?
Yeah.
You
Yeah. Yeah.
know, didn't have the conception that you would write a book eventually?
No, no,
Did you have an ambition?
no.
So it was really the encouragement of people on the internet which made you write.
The first thing I posted there was Footsteps, which is
Yeah.
the first chapter of that book is,
Yeah.
it's like a overview intro So the first like substantive thing I posted is the second chapter from that, which is Footsteps.
Yeah.
And I mean, I almost didn't post it. Like I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, no one knows who I am. Like if they don't like it, like they're not gonna come to my door and tell me like, hey, you
No.
suck. Like,
Exactly.
it's
And it's anonymous. I mean, like the
yeah,
ultimately
like
your face isn't on it. It's not, yeah, it's not your name. Like,
no, like so even though there's low risk, like you don't want to get clowned on. Like that's the hardest. It's the thing
no.
with any art is like once you put it out there, like you open yourself up for people to have
Yeah.
opinions about it. That's the whole exchange. Like that's the whole point.
Mm,
I have opinions about all sorts of stuff. Like
yeah.
so that's a risk, and I decided to go for it and just post one story with like this kernel of an idea I had, and people responded really well in a way that was kind of galvanizing and exciting for me. And
Yeah.
like I mean, I really it was just like I had been reading so many of the stories. It's like, well, I can give back, like I can contribute
Totally.
something. Yeah, and so
Totally.
I did, and that for me, honestly, like that was all I ever intended was just footsteps. But people were interested, and they were, they liked the story, and they were playing the game of like
Yeah.
what happened next, and like, oh, that's so crazy. Did you find anything else out? And it's like, well, you know what? Like, I guess I could have found something else out, so I'll keep
Yeah.
writing.
No.
It went from
And
there.
that kind of like natural kind of evolution, like that thing of going, you take a little risk, and then you get, I guess, in your case, and this is obviously not true for everyone. You get validation early on. It's amazing confidence boost, and I think that lots of people unfortunately overthink the creativity and sharing their creativity because most of the time, especially if you found a community, like you said, who have some values about what the kind of how you should treat other people and why we're all here, like it is often, and I think horror is a good example of this, is very welcoming and people just want you to contribute. That's what
Yeah.
community is about, isn't it? So you obviously had this kind of really great experience, and after that, after this first footsteps, it was then what I think is basically the, I guess, like the real kind of like heart behind, or not the heart, maybe the crucial plot point in Penpal, right? Is it the balloon
Yeah.
section, which is obviously, and I'm going to start talking about the book and bringing the book in as well because I know I do a lot of TikToks. Obviously, that's mainly where I do my thing, and TikTok loves Penpal. Like it's something that's consistently shared as something that just is very very fucking creepy, and of course it's the cover is fantastic, and I think that you can kind of tell that you came up in this way where you were like, it's a slow burn, right? Because you're writing this stuff. And I know that this is not I imagine what's in here is not literally your Reddit posts like back to back. It's,
No, I changed them, did
yeah,
some
of
editing.
course. Yeah, yeah. So you kind of like you were building it, but you were telling people a story, right? Like you wanted to give them a bit more of a scare. You wanted to get them feel a bit creeped out, but not too much. And leave a bit of something there at the end that would make people want to read more, right? This book has like basically got a very interesting tone, and it's very dread inducing in a way that is basically, for me, very difficult to describe what is so fucking dreadful about this book. Like, basically how what is scaring you when you are writing this? Because I think it's important, like, to scare other people, you've got to know what's scaring you.
Sure.
So, what is it about pen pal and this dread? It's just like slow moving dread that you can't see. Like, what is it? What is that in you? Where did that come from?
I mean, I think it came from a couple spots. When I was a kid, I used to have dreams about being kidnapped. Like that was like a recurring nightmare that I would have where
Yeah,
like some guy was at the beach with my mom and some guy just came and like picked me up and like
yeah.
started walking away and my mom's like bye and it's like oh that's like a shit reaction mom like so like
Oh
that
God,
like I
that's
don't still have that dream
yeah,
but it'd be interesting or weird if I did but stuff like that having something like the stuff that really tends to get to me like in
yeah,
any horror that I consume is being a part of like some kind of larger story or some kind of larger like unfolding of events that the protagonist isn't aware of, that
Yeah.
there's like all these machinations like happening, in the background, and you're not aware of them. And
Mm.
especially when you're too young and kind of too green to understand, even if you were given all the facts, you wouldn't necessarily know
No,
what was
no.
happening. So that kind of stuff is always scarier to me. And like dread, I mean, that's like the perfect word for it. And like you contrast that with something like fear, which to me is like more immediate.
Yeah.
Like
It's like a
it's
reaction.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a little more visceral. It's reactive. Dread is, it looms and it follows you and it stays with you after the thing is done, uh,
Mm.
movie or book. And like that to me is like the sweet spot and what I like
Yeah.
when I, read or watch anything. And so that was,
Mm.
definitely informing how I approach the story because, that's what I like.
Yeah, I hope you take this as a compliment. I think that I found that Penpal was quite similar to someone like Paul Tremblay's writing. Sometimes at his best, he also does that. What I found really interesting about reading this book was it's interesting hearing you describing dread as something that looms and kind of like follows you around because that's what it feels like, the villain, this figure who you have basically never really have any idea what's going on, like
Mhm.
with him, or even what is it? It's supernatural. Like there's a kind of sense of like you can't grasp it, like that dread that's following you around. And you get to the end, and obviously you're being drawn through, and there are these great moments of like the romance in that kind of final third situation. All of that stuff. I don't want to spoil it, but it's been out for a long time. If anyone hasn't read it, you just got to. But like, it gets to the end, and what happens in the end is when I read it and I finished the book, I have to admit, for a bit, I was a bit like, okay, what's happened there? And then literally 2 weeks later, I suddenly felt really scared scared by it, but like that dread. Just I
Sure.
suddenly remembered it and was like, oh wow, that really left an impression on me that I can't name it and I can't put my finger on it, but maybe that's what makes it so dreadful. You know what I mean? And a lot of people say the same thing about it. I spoke to this guy, he's a writer, Nick Roberts. He wrote, he said the same thing about it as well. He was like, yeah, it was affected me and has affected me ever since. How do you kind of like put your finger on like how you managed to do that? Is it just something that's in you, or were you being very conscious about this kind of ambiguity, this dread?
I mean, I was so first of all, thank you, and that's the fact that it acted as a kind of time bomb for
That
you, and
was a
like,
time bomb.
yeah, but that is high praise, and I will take every bit of that, and I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
you should.
And-
You should.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
mean the it's because it's what I like, it's something that I want to infuse in
Yeah.
whatever I'm doing. And I did try to I played with like a bunch of different ideas and like the format of No Sleep, which is, as
Yeah,
we've
of
discussed,
course. Yeah.
that I mean, that itself kind of like dictates
Yeah.
where this goes. Like it's all first person, so that affects things. Like
Mm.
I can't die at the end. Like
No,
it's not
no.
going to be writing this posthumously. Like, so, in order to try to like inject like,
Yeah.
a little bit of uncanny and a little bit of ambiguity and, and I find it's hard and I try, whether I'm successful or not is going to be down to the individual
Yeah.
and down to like my own execution. But, I find myself really liking in most media, some degree of ambiguity, some degree of
Yeah.
like, where it leaves you, you can either, discuss it with your friends, or you could just think about it and try to figure out what happened. And like you can get
Mm.
sloppy with that, and you can leave like a bunch of plot holes, and like that's a problem. But I really enjoy that, and I really, I really gravitate toward that in what
Mm.
I consume and what interests me. And so, yeah, when I was writing Pen Pal, it was, I know the story has to end, and
Mm.
it's a
Yeah.
matter of how I want to end it and what kind of answers I want to, infuse
Yeah.
in that thing.
And
And
provoke. And it was actually links to what you were saying earlier about this idea of like when you're a child as well. There's all these kind of your mechanics going on that affect your life, but you don't understand them. You maybe hear them or see them, but that doesn't mean you know what it means and how it impacts you. And like when you're interacting with something ambiguous, it's obviously very subjective as well. So that's like you said, when you're debating with friends, it's everyone going, "Oh, it made me feel like this," and someone else will go, "Oh, that's interesting. That made me feel like that," and whatever. I think that kind of subjectivity is just so important to horror in general. Like, of course, there will be some people who read Penpal and find the kind of the uncanny feeling that you get at the end of going, what has happened here? You get to basically decide what that is, I think.
Yeah.
Like, you can take it as far as you want. That's what's kind of really quite good about your ending is that anything could have happened really. You don't know what actually happened, but you do as well.
Well, yeah, and I'll have people like they'll email me and they'll ask me like kind of clarifying questions, and like I have to decide if I want to answer that or if like
Yeah.
no, actually, like you having that question is kind of the point.
I
Like,
think that
you
is
know,
the point. Yeah. Well, for me, I think that is the point. Yeah.
when I think that like as long as, as long as the answers, and in my opinion, like they are like the answers are contained within the pages, then like, if you have all the resources, then like it's fun. It's part of the game to try to figure out. There's still people that like theorize about, who the stalker is in that book. And like a lot of people think it's the protagonist's dad because he's not ever mentioned. And like
Mm,
that's interesting to me. It's fun for me to read that.
literally never occurred to me.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
and I'll like stumble upon things of like people like really passionately arguing for that, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. Like I hadn't considered that until like I
Yeah.
first read about that. But like, the it's also part of the ambiguity is, that's infused throughout the story because
Yeah.
memory and like the fallibility of memory and the nature of secondhand stories that are about your own life. Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, when you really try to think about like your own history and you try to remember stories, or you're at like a reunion or you're talking to relatives and they're
Mm,
telling a story, and it's like,
yeah.
you hear a story enough times and it's like you imagine yourself having been there, and then like maybe
Yeah.
later you find out that you weren't, or you weren't even born yet or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Memory's so malleable and like so
Yeah.
flawed that, I think in certain stories and what I was interested in and tried to do, I think it can work pretty well for,
Yeah. Yeah.
vehicle for an unsettling story.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, obviously, the way that it kind of came to be through No Sleep is like the whole point of that is about like, well, this thing happened to me, so therefore that's a memory, and it's ambiguous whether it is and it's not. So it's like you can really see how it came, and I think it's actually like so beautiful in a way that like a book that has been read and received well by people who would may never have heard of No Sleep really, or like whatever, like it works, it validates, I think, like that passion you had early on to do it. And my kind of last question really is like about what it feels like to be accepted by the horror community and validated. I mean, obviously you had this experience in this like No Sleep subreddit, but like, what does it feel like to just be gone, really like what you made. It was really good.
I mean, it's humbling and encouraging. I mean, it can't feel anything other than great and surprising. And,
Yeah.
the only reason that the book exists, like in physical form, is because people encouraged me online, encouraged me to do it. Like, you should turn this into a book. And so I thought, okay, why not? And then like I ran a Kickstarter for it and that was
Yeah.
successful and that was a surprise. And
Yeah.
I really like my goal in the Kickstarter was like to, make enough copies of the book for people who wanted it, who wanted like a physical, like, manifestation or whatever of like the story that they liked. And I could have one on my bookshelf and that'd be cool. And I never really imagined that like it would continue to exist beyond that. I mean, that was never the plan. It was just like
No.
it was like a novelty. It was just like, oh, cool, like a physical, like I'll tweak it and I'll edit it and refine it, but this is just, a little neat
Yeah.
novelty. And so yeah, to have it exist beyond that and have people like it and gravitate toward it, talk about it. It inspires people. Some people have told me like to do their own projects, and like
Yeah, of course.
that's there's nothing there could be nothing cooler than that. Like
Yeah.
this thing, because that was how I started, was reading this stuff online
Yeah.
and contributing to it, and to have that kind of cycle back. And
Encouraging other people and
yeah, like
right.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. And there's never been a better time for that. Like,
Yeah.
with the internet and with
Yeah.
print on demand services or ebooks or whatever, like
It's brilliant. I mean, obviously Amazon are highly problematic in so many ways, but I always say that like KDP, Kindle Unlimited, that is one of the best things that's ever happened in
yeah,
culture, I would say.
yeah. It's I mean, it's definitely like, I'm not without my own reservations,
Oh
and
yeah,
and
no, of course, but like anything, but it's given it's opportunity for people to have their voices be heard. It's
yeah.
never been easier as a writer.
No, you could like, you could, pound out some stuff in a Word document, and like,
Yeah,
in a couple hours you could have it up on their web store, like
yeah,
compatible.
it's mad.
Like, yeah, it's it's absolutely crazy. And even I mean, their print on demand service, like I don't know what to do with inventory. Like I
No,
don't.
no, 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 no. And,
Yeah,
and
so
to have, yeah, you can't. And also, when you're starting out, you can't afford to buy, 1,000 books. Like, where are you
no.
going? Like, what if you don't sell them? What are you gonna do with them? Like,
Build a little fort and
yeah, a
like
sadness
hang out
for.
in it.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
like, yeah, and good luck finding like a publisher. Like that's
No,
tough.
it's really bad. But like, would you have? I presume, well, as that child in a kind of rural place in northern Florida, right? It's like, could you imagine that this would have happened to you?
No. Well, I mean, kind of continuously, like throughout the whole process of doing the book, and like even things that have come after, like it's all still like, it's unimaginable. I mean, it's, I never I wrote Penpal for kicks, and for, to give back to the community and to participate in this thing that I thought and still think is really cool. And yeah, I could not have foreseen this, and I still find it like a little hard to believe. I'm grateful, I'm
Yeah.
lucky, and
No.
I'm, you know,
No, you're
it's amazing.
you're many things, but you are a good writer, and it's really great. I really enjoy it, and obviously, I look forward to. Well, I hope you continue to write as long as you can, and as long as you want to. And just some like a quick last question I like to ask, which is a small one, which is what are you listening to? What would you listen to today? Music. What would you put on if you're going to listen to music? What would you put on now?
I mean, I listen to a lot of different stuff. Like, you just mean in general
Yeah, in
for
general,
like,
like that doesn't have to be anything. Like, what's your mood at the moment?
I mean, I've been listening to a lot of metal, a lot of like, I guess, melodic black metal. Like, as you would know, because you like
Yes,
metal, the
yes,
genres get really
I do.
confusing. And
Yeah,
yeah, so been listening to this band Black Braid a lot.
yeah,
Really good. Hell Ripper, Midnight, and then like older crust shit like Amoebics and
yeah. Nice.
Motorhead.
Of course,
A
yeah,
lot of, and then I go in for the softer stuff sometimes, and
yeah,
then,
yeah.
just gotta cast a wide net to sample all the little,
Definitely. I mean, that's what's so good about these, metal, horror. Like, if you're a fan, you can go. You would never be able to listen to all of the music that's out there in all the different genres. Same with the books. You'll never be able to read all of the books. So it's
I
like
mean,
it's a playground.
yeah, you can answer this now or when you stop recording, but I'm gonna need to know your answer to that same question. I want to know.
That's true. To be honest, like I really like. Do you know a band called Bloodbath? They're
Yeah.
yeah. So like their well, both their first, second albums, I really love because I like Opeth and stuff as well. Like
Mhm.
it's not like something that I would listen to because it's a bit baroque and a bit like
Sure.
fuddly duddly dee. I kind of just want him to scream and play a heavy riff.
Okay.
Like, but like that's why I
Just get to
like
the point.
yeah, exactly. But that's why then I like that kind of. I guess like I don't really. I love black metal. My problem is that I started listening to like the classic OG black metal
Okay.
bands. Yeah, like, just Mayhem and all of this. And I really loved it. And then I started reading into the people behind it. And then I started feeling really I started like joining these groups and like trying to find out lists of like black metal artists. I loved the sound. That sound to me was like, it just like, it was like, I'm not a depressing person, right? Like
Mm,
as you could probably tell, I'm quite like bubbly, but like
sure.
that kind of feeling of just like, just that noise, like it
Hmm.
sounds like wind through a mountain.
Hmm.
Like, that was like just soothed me. And some people obviously, like with horror, they'd go, why would you listen to that? It sounds fucking terrifying. And for me, it was like, this makes me feel like really peaceful. Like,
Yeah, it
so
helps you find your happy place.
so I found my happy place, and then I realized that I can't remember what band is it, but it's, the guy killed some guy because he was homophobic towards him.
Oh, that's a dissection.
Dissection, exactly. And so it's
Yeah.
like that, and so that kind of stuff was like completely against.
Yeah.
It was kind of jarring, and that's how I found a lot of metal. Is I kind of go, what are they like as people?
Yeah. This is, I mean, we don't need to
No, no,
go
no.
on. But no, but that band specifically, like that same thing happened to me. Because,
Yeah,
and in addition to, I mean, they sing about like, transcendent, like fucking like,
yeah.
cosmic
Spiritual.
gods.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
like
Yeah.
and achieving like higher enlightenment on like the cosmic plane and shit. And then like, yeah, he like lures a dude into the woods and murders him because he's gay. Like,
No, it's fucked. Like,
yeah, it is.
and it is that thing of like the art and the artist. But in this situation, I am going, and the same for me applies with horror books. If I'm reading something that's very brutal, taboo, disturbing, I actually want to know that the person who's written it is like their intentions are good. And they're not hateful. Because for me, metal and horror, they are as much about love and life as they are the
Mhm.
other stuff. And so when I get taken to that transcendent place, it's kind of like I need to know that I'm being looked after well,
Yes,
you
that your
know?
guide to that place isn't
Yeah.
an actual
It-
fucking monster.
no,
Yeah.
exactly. Because I
Yeah.
want to interact a bit with the monsters, right? But I don't want to like become like a fan of a literal monster. Like
Yeah.
that's not what I'm up for.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember, and chop this up however you want, but
No,
I
no.
remember, like reading about, I was reading on this, on Dissection Spotify thing, and it like mentions like that the lead singer went to jail for murder. And I was like, okay, like that's not great. It's
Yeah.
metal, but like
No, no,
maybe don't
yeah.
do that. And so like I read more about it because I was like, well, I'm sure like there were like mitigating factors here, and like and
Yeah,
no, every detail that I read just made it worse and worse. And
I
like
know.
I think, yeah, that's something that I wasn't able to turn a
No.
blind eye to. Like that's a bit much.
It is, but there's plenty of stuff and so much stuff that's just absolutely fine and not problematic. So it's all good. But yeah, we'll come to the end. I thank you so much for talking to me,
Oh
man.
yeah, man.
It
Yeah, no,
was
this was great.